Happy Hump Day, everybody, and welcome to The Point. I'm your host, Noah Warren. Hope everybody's doing well. A lot to get into today. A lot of different storylines to explore. And today's episode is entitled Observations because I have some of them. I have a lot of them following last night's NHL action. Just overall thoughts on the season so far. I have my top 5 teams through mid-November. We're over a month into the season. I thought I'd explore that today on the show. So I will talk about the 5 best teams in the National Hockey League currently. There's been some things in the NBA. I think it's been a jumble of teams. Nobody's elite yet other than really the Celtics and Bucks. But I want to talk about some storylines going through the National Basketball Association today. I did want to talk about NCAA. Did not get to that yesterday. We'll do that today. And it is November, and normally baseball is put to the wayside. I mentioned, just last week that normally Major League Baseball is quiet in November. The World Series is won in late October when there's not a year where there's a work stoppage. The season ends. Guys go on vacation. Guys have surgery, whatever they have to do. And free agency heats up in December. There's the GM meetings, agents are there, there's conversations throughout baseball, and then before Christmas, sprinkling into January, the big names are taken off the board. Now, Aaron Judge, Justin Verlander, Trey Turner are all still free agents. They are yet to sign, but we do have some baseball news. And it started today with the Toronto Blue Jays, who traded one of their better bats, Teoscar Hernandez, to the Seattle Mariners for relief pitcher Eric Swanson and the number 8 overall prospect in the Seattle Mariner organization. Teoscar Hernandez has 1 year of team control left on his contract. Swanson has 3 years remaining now for the Toronto Blue Jays. I see this as an opportunity for the Blue Jays to try to upgrade at certain positions, but now it's about this team having the ability to do it and also pulling the trigger. Teoscar Hernandez, for me, is not a guy that you want playing in the field on any given Sunday. He is a better designated hitter. He's a quality bat, but he does have his problems. I mentioned in left field, he can be out to lunch. He can make some really bad reads on balls, and he's a guy that will have multiple errors every single season, and he's not a great guy in the field. So that's a negative about him. Another thing, he's injury prone. He misses games every season. He seems to go through really bad funks, and then he has a great 2-month stretch. So I think Teoscar is a good bat. And on a good team, he's your 5th or 6th guy in the batting order. He's up 5th or 6th. He gets his at-bats. He's a designated hitter. He fills in at left field when you need him to. But otherwise, he's not put in that kind of situation. But on the other hand, he hits 20 to 25 homers a season. He'll get you 65 to 70 RBIs. And he's also one of the better Blue Jays trades that they've made in the last 10 years. The Blue Jays traded Francisco Liriano, for Teoscar Hernandez straight up. This is when Houston was going for a World Series. Francisco was a former starter in Detroit and Pittsburgh. He was a bullpen arm at this point, really struggling for the Blue Jays, and Houston felt they could use him as a depth piece. Houston ended up winning the World Series in 2017. Liriano was not on the World Series roster, but the Blue Jays got Teoscar Hernandez, and he's turned out to be a very valuable piece for them for the last number of years. Batting .267 over that stretch. He's hit almost 100 home runs as a member of the Toronto Blue Jays. He's been a really solid pro in Major League Baseball. So a great trade to acquire a guy like Teoscar Hernandez. Now you're hoping that trading him away will do the same. Well, in return, they get Eric Swanson. That's the key piece in this trade because the Toronto Blue Jays look at their situation, and one of the big reasons why they lost last year, why they didn't beat the Mariners, and why they were fraud World Series favorites to start the season, in my opinion, is because of their bullpen. They did not have reliable arms. They had Jordan Romano, who was a great closer all year, who was always solid. Tyler Bass was good, a good deadline pickup, and they picked up his option, so he'll be back with the Blue Jays next year. Garcia was always iffy for me. He was never 100% solid. I never fully trusted him. But Eric Swanson is a guy that had a 184 earned run average last year coming out of the Seattle Mariners bullpen with 3 years of team control. I understand why the Blue Jays look at this and say, this is a great ad. This is something that we had to do. He's a great piece. We need to do this. And I don't necessarily disagree, but I have my questions about this and I have my worries. I have a general outlook on bullpen arms in Major League Baseball. If you have a good season, the next one is going to be bad. That's normally how it goes, and you hear different front office people talk about bullpen arms, talk about closers, how you don't sign them to long-term deals because they always go to shit. Edwin Diaz was the first closer in MLB history to get over 4 years. He got a 5-year deal with the Mets. Mariano Rivera, the GOAT closer, first ballot Hall of Famer, was not given more than a 4-year contract. They don't hand them out because, God, it's such a tough position. Things can happen. You just have a good year, then you have a bad year. That's pro sports. So to think Swanson's going to have a 184 ERA for the Toronto Blue Jays next year, I'm not confident about that. And yes, you're buying a piece right now that looks great. You're buying a home that has a swimming pool. It's got stuff for your kids. It's got a side-by-side. It's got all the fixings that look like this house is great. But you get inside, and the more you look at it, the foundation's rotting. You got no furniture, and you're up shit creek without a paddle. I look at Swanson. I don't love the fact that he had a great season last year. As crazy as that sounds, take a chance on somebody that didn't. Because that's the cyclical nature of baseball. That's how these work. Edwin Diaz, this is an example. I mentioned Edwin Diaz. He had a sub 220 ERA as a closer last year, which is phenomenal. He had the walkout song, all that. The year before, he had an over 5 ERA, and people in New York were chanting in Citi Field to trade Edwin Diaz. They hated him. They couldn't stand him. They hated his guts. They wanted him anywhere but New York. That's one season to go to an All-Star, and before that, you were rotting into the ground. David Price was phenomenal in Toronto. After he was never the same pitcher. Red Sox never got the value that the Blue Jays and the Tigers got of David Price. He's a starting pitcher, but he had to go into the bullpen. It's never great, the bullpen. They never got that value. How many times do you just see rotation arms bounce around year after year, and they're basically a suitcase because it's complete unknown. You're throwing pickles at the wall, hoping that it doesn't slide down first, like in Billy Madison. Teoscar Hernandez was a bat that gave you some value, but at the same time, you can upgrade it. John Paul Morosi, who works for the Major League Baseball Network, reported today that the Toronto Blue Jays are very much interested in Brandon Nimmo, who was the leadoff hitter for the New York Mets last season. He's a left-handed bat. He's something they very much need. And he's a much better fielder. He's a left fielder than Teoscar Hernandez. That makes sense. Now the thing is, go get Brandon Nimmo. Go get that asset if you really want him, because we've seen this Blue Jays organization, the general manager, this group of people say they're going to do things and they don't do it. They're going to be aggressive at the trade deadline. They hardly do anything. They get a middle reliever with no pedigree who barely pitched. They really want to be aggressive and get really good starting pitching. You don't do it. So you can trade away this guy hoping that this middle reliever is going to be a great value for you next year. And today, the sell job is that he will be. And maybe he will. But I'm having my doubts. Just instant reaction to the trade, I don't think it's a home run. Pardon the pun. If you want Brandon Nimmo, I like him a lot. He's a prototypical leadoff hitter. He will give you 6 to 7 pitches per at bat. He will frustrate the pitcher. You get to see more pitches, so it helps the guys behind you. It will help Vladdy. It'll help Bo Bichette, the guys later in your lineup. But this isn't addition by subtraction. Because Swanson is a good middle reliever, but he's not going to win you a World Series. It's not going to be a make-or-break guy that gets it done for you. Something they still struggle to find is pitching. They got Vladdy in place. They got Bichette. They got some good bats. They can score runs with anybody. It's about finding the right pitching staff. Hyunjin Ryu is done. He's out of Toronto. He had Tommy John. He's Yusui Kikuchi. He has 2 years left on his deal. I'm sure management will give him another run next season. Are you going to bank on him to be a starter in your rotation? You can't. It's a bad way to do your job. You're going to have your guy. You're going to have Alek Manoah, of course. And you'll have Jose Barrios banking that he has a bounce-back season, which I think he will, because based off the information that I just gave you. And Ross Stripling was not tendered. So do you bring Ross Stripling back or do you let him go to free agency? He was extremely valuable for you last year, but he had a career year. I'd let him walk. I'd let Ross Stripling go, and I'd add a new pitcher to the mix. As good as Ross Stripling was, he won't be as good as he was last season ever again. And I think they like him a lot. He was a great soldier for them. He was going to start Game 3 of the wildcard series. Unfortunately, they weren't good enough to win Game 2. They blew that big lead. I think the Blue Jays are going to be an active team this offseason, but it's about finding the right pieces and knowing where to look. For instance, there are teams that are just suckers. And you know this kind of shopper. It's the person that doesn't know that it's going to be Black Friday a week from Friday. They're unaware that there's a sale coming, but they go into a department store and they buy a really expensive item, not even caring, not thinking, don't put any thought into it, and they just say, I know that brand name. That's a Louis Vuitton bag. I'm going to buy it. That's a smart TV. I could buy it for half the price next Friday. No, I need it today. I'm going to buy it. You ever meet any of these type of people? I know one pretty well. But I also look at this, and my analogy to baseball here is the Los Angeles Angels are a bad Black Friday shopper. They go into the store and they see right on it, Black Friday, November 26th. And they know it's November 16th, and they don't give a shit. They're buying something today because they're horny for an item. They need something. They need to add it to their collection. The Los Angeles Angels have been off for a while because they didn't make the playoffs, because they never do. But we've heard from them. They've been a little active. They said they're not going to trade Shohei Ohtani. That might happen. That might not happen. I'm not buying that they're not going to 100%. You explore every option. If you get a crazy good offer for Shohei Ohtani, you do it. By the way, the owner's selling the team. What if new ownership wants to trade him? Then he'll be traded. Artie Moreno is trying to get rid of the Angels. Doesn't want the team anymore. It's a crock of shit. Don't buy any of that. But the Angels still are owned by Artie Moreno, who's been one of the worst owners in pro sports during his tenure. And there are some bad ones. I talked about them. I can go through them again. Stephen Ross, right up there with anybody, the Miami Dolphins owner. They're better now that he's not meddling. Jerry Jones, right up there. Great businessman, shitty owner. I'm talking about just pure winning. Hasn't done any of it. Of course, Danny Snyder, old Danny boy, always getting in the way. Taylor Heineke, the Green Lizards, winning despite of that clown. There's a lot of bad owners. Artie Moreno is right up there. Can't build a new stadium. Can't build a team. He doesn't hire good people. It's just a crock of shit in Los Angeles, and not the Dodgers. But I mentioned the Halos are bad shoppers because they don't wait till Black Friday. So it's November 16th. They opened the day yesterday. They get to work, and their GM says, wow. You know, guys, Tyler Anderson, who just came off a career year with the Los Angeles Dodgers, about 10 to 40 minutes, maybe an hour and a half of traffic, down the road, he just had a career year for the Dodgers. Wow. Did he? Yeah, he did. Okay. And he's also a free agent. Okay. Interesting. Where are you going with this? Well, see, what I'm thinking, guys, is Tyler Anderson, just career year in Los Angeles. We're in Los Angeles, sort of. We're in Anaheim, but we say we're the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Right. Yeah, that's correct. That's our team name. If he pitched well for the Dodgers, which he did, career high in wins, career high in earn run average, career high in strikeouts. Well, if he did all of that last year, he's only going to continue to get better. But let's think about this for a second. Tyler Anderson, just all career years, as I just pointed out, Mr. Moreno. He did that, and before this past season, he was a middle rotation guy, was with the Pirates, was with the Reds, bounced around, never had a home. Nobody loved Tyler Anderson. Well, you see, you got an opportunity in Los Angeles. You're telling me he's only got one good year in him? Why don't we sign him for 3 years? And I'm sure there's pushback in that meeting. So I know if I was in it, I would have pushed back on this signing. But they said, you know what? Fuck it. Let's bring him in. We love Tyler. He's going to be our new ace of our rotation because our rotation is so shit. He'll be our number 2 guy behind Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani's our stud. We might still trade him. But let's get Tyler Anderson because we need to pretend somewhat that we want to win. This signing is so stupid, I can't even... This is nothing against Tyler Anderson, but this is against my overall thought, my logic on this. Career high, career high, career high. No, I don't want you. How many players have a career high in their contract year? So many. How do organizations not learn this? Can you not learn from watching Thomas Vanek or Alex Semin? Guys that just find it in that year and it magically turns into, we gotta pay the man. How about Matt Flynn for the Seattle Seahawks? Remember him? Remember Matt Flynn? Yeah. He had a career year, was in Green Bay, played one good game, got the bag from Seattle. And the second he got there, they knew they made a mistake, and Russell Wilson was the quarterback of the future. A year and a half later, they won the Super Bowl. Contract seasons are scary, scary, scary because you look at it and say, wow, he was so great last year. Right? He was. How's he going to be this year? How's he going to perform now that he's got some security? Sometimes it's not just the security, it's just he's not that good of a player. He's just fair. He's a good player. He's a middle rotation piece. 3 years, $34 million for Tyler Anderson. Tony Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson are the same tree. They're an apple tree, but they're an apple with a spot on it. Not because they've done anything wrong, but because they were a great apple for a bit of time. But they're still a little bruised, but because in the past they were beat up because that apple was on that tree forever. Nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted that apple. It stayed there, and then it started to turn around, but it still has some bruises on it. Stay away. The Halos will never get better because they make stupid decisions. Let's give Mike Trout records amount of money. Okay, but this is when he's turning 30. Still, let's do it. 13 years, should have did it earlier and actually tried to win when you got him, not this. How about we give Michael Lorenzen a 5-year deal after a career year? No, he's not even on the team. How about Jared Weaver? How about we give him a 6-7 year? They're still paying him money. They bought him out, Jared Weaver. I got it. How about we sign Justin Upton to career money that'll cripple our franchise? Where's Justin Upton? Oh, yeah, he's not in baseball. Went to the Tigers, stunk it up there for a while, batting about 200. They make mistake after mistake after mistake. Let's sign Kurt Suzuki in his mid-30s to a multi-year contract coming off a World Series in Washington. No. Just because you had success one season doesn't guarantee success the next one. And I'll go on this. I will bank on body of work more than one season of production. Now, you get benefit of the doubt if you have one really good season and you have age on your side. Tage Thompson in Buffalo, stud. Didn't have a great year until last year, but he's also 25 years old. Tyler Harrison's been around the block. All these guys that they sign in Los Angeles are not spring chickens. They're trying to get a veteran team to compete for a World Series. Never works. Always a train wreck. The fact that Steven Strasburg never ended up a Los Angeles Angel is completely staggering to me. He fits them perfectly. Gets there hurt every second, can't play. Well, they didn't get Strasburg, but they did get his buddy at third, Anthony Rendon. Remember that World Series in 19 when the Nats won and Anthony Rendon was playing through pain? The whole postseason they were saying how they thought he had some sort of serious injury. No, let's sign him anyway. Big long-term deal. We love him. Just won a World Series. He can help us win one. Haven't made the playoffs. Not close. Complete disaster. The Marlins have made the playoffs in that time frame. They did. Shortened season, they made the playoffs. I don't care when it is. Did you make the playoffs? Marlins did. Who spent no money. Angels spend money. They just stink. They don't spend it the right way. Way to go, Halos. This signing is going to blow up in their face so damn quick. It's got nothing to do with Tyler Anderson. It's got to do with the organization not seeing what he really is. A bit piece. These people that get front office jobs, can you not spot a bit piece from afar? Can you not see that it's a mirage and it's a fugazi? He's looking like an ace. He's not. He can be our partner to Shohei. He's not. Mike Trout's only 29. He only gets injured every year. He'll be fine. He's not. Mike Trout's played under 100 games the last 2 years. Last 2 seasons for the Los Angeles Angels. The one constant that organization has is a really bad team batting average and Shohei Ohtani being a stud. He should be the MVP of the league again. He won't win it. Judge will. He should be the MVP. Again. He's the best player in baseball. Funny how the Angels went from having the best player in baseball, Mike Trout, and they transitioned into having the next best player in baseball, Shohei Ohtani. And in all of that time, where for over a decade, that organization has had the best player in the entire sport on their roster. They have made the playoffs once and have won 0 playoff games. That's hard to do. It's hard to be that incompetent and that bad. Way to go, Los Angeles. Other baseball news. First baseman, World Series champion Anthony Rizzo re-signed with the New York Yankees. This is not a big surprise. I thought Rizzo would return. He fit in well in the Bronx. Apparently, he's very good friends with Aaron Judge, so I don't think Aaron Judge is going to go back to the Yankees because he's buddies with Anthony Rizzo. But Rizzo's a World Series champion. Doesn't have as good a batting average now as he used to. But I still think he's one of the better defensive first basemen in all of baseball. He reads it really well. He's a good competitor, good leader. 2 years, $40 million. It's a lot, I will say, for his services at his age. I think that's a bit rich. But clearly they wanted to keep him. And there are times you sign guys and you give them more money, you give them more privilege, whatever it might be, because you have a bigger goal in mind. This giving Rizzo a second year, fully guaranteed, giving him 2 years, $40 million, it might be the Aaron Judge thought. We're going to be nice to your buddy. Please return so you can continue to play with him. You guys are super close. Come play with Rizzo. Let's win a World Series here in the Bronx. It could be that simple. Seth Jones wanted out of Columbus. Why did he ultimately go to Chicago? Do I think he liked Chicago? Yeah. I also think he liked that they were willing to acquire Caleb, his brother, who really wasn't getting a great opportunity to play in the NHL in Edmonton. Chicago, they were willing to acquire him. They were willing to guarantee him a top 6 role. Seth Jones goes to the organization and signs an 8-year extension. Funny how that works. Sometimes it's just about doing simple things to help the player. You also got to give him a pile of money, which the Yankees will have to do. But I like Rizzo. He's not the reason they lost. Looking at the Yankees roster, Josh Donaldson's got to go. He can't return next year at third base. Isaiah Kiner-Fialfa, he's got to go at shortstop. He's not returning. You got to hope you keep Aaron Judge, although, again, I'll repeat this. If you have to give him 8 to 10 years, I don't care what the money is. I don't care if you get him 10 years, $10 million. I'm not bringing him back. I'm not signing that guy to an 8-year deal. No way, no how I'm giving Aaron Judge an 8-year contract. Somebody will. It would not be me because I'd be the smarter person and make that decision for my organization. To me, whoever signs Aaron Judge will be making a mistake. It might not be a mistake next year because I still think he'll be a good player. But if he goes back to New York Yankees, do I think the New York Yankees are the World Series favorites? They might be in Vegas because, like the Dallas Cowboys, like the Toronto Maple Leafs, they know idiots will bet on them. That doesn't mean they're going to win. That doesn't mean they're the favorite. So, again, it's a fraud one for me. Do I think if he goes to the San Francisco Giants that they're World Series favorites? No. San Francisco didn't make the playoffs last year. One of the things I got right about the baseball season. They'd have to pass the Dodgers, who they won't, and they'd have to pass the Padres, who are going to have Tatis Jr. back, who will have a healthy rotation to start a season, which they didn't last year. Clevenger will be back. They'll have Blake Snell. They'll have Joe Musgrove with that lineup. San Francisco gets Aaron Judge and they keep the similar rotation that they have, they'll miss the playoffs again next season. Paying them all that money to miss the playoffs. Dodgers get him, Dodgers will be fine. The Dodgers get Aaron Judge, yeah, they'll be fine. And they can afford to. But for the Yankees, if you keep Aaron Judge, you're spending a lot of money. That doesn't mean you can just sit on your hands. Garrett Cole is your ace. He's a very good pitcher. But you need to do more to upgrade your pitching, clearly. And you need to look and say, we need to upgrade. We need to get a new third baseman because he strikes out all the time and he's just not a good player. I'm not sure Josh Donaldson's in baseball next year. And Kinder Fialfa was not a great ad from Minnesota. You wanted to get rid of your old third baseman. I get it. You wanted to try out a new shortstop. Hasn't been a great fit for Gleyber Torres or since Didi Gregorius left. But you need those two upgrades at least, and you need more pitching depth on top of signing Aaron Judge, which will be for over $400 million. So with all that being said, I think the Yankees will likely spend over $600 million this offseason, potentially. $400 on Judge, and you spend another $200 million on players. Again, if Judge wants $400 million, I'm not giving it to him, but I think the Yankees will just for optics alone. $400 for him, you're telling me you need a good third baseman. He's not going to be getting $100 million? Unless you sign Justin Turner to come over from the Dodgers because they declined his option. That's like getting another Josh Donaldson. I don't want Justin Turner for $10 million. That's not the player I want at third base if I want to try to win a World Series championship. You're telling me you need to upgrade at shortstop, you need to pay Trey Turner, and it's not going to cost you over $100 million? It's gonna. Interesting. There's some good players across the league that are available. But the price tag for all of these guys is going to vary, and we're going to see the threshold. We're going to see what these teams are willing to pay. For instance, the owner of the Houston Astros came out today, did an interview, and said that he's been having open dialogue with Justin Verlander, who declined his player option last week and is hitting free agency. And Jim Crane, the Washington owner, said Justin Verlander's looking for something like the Max Scherzer deal, which Max Scherzer signed last offseason, which was for 3 years, making over $40 million a year to make him the highest paid pitcher in league history. So Verlander wants a similar deal. 2 to 3 years, he'll be 40 by the start of next season. At close to 40, likely $35 to $40 million a season. Justin Verlander is coming off. He's going to win the Cy Young Award after coming off Tommy John surgery. Won his first World Series start. Hasn't been a great World Series pitcher. One of the worst World Series pitchers of all time, based on just the number of starts he's had. Looking at this situation, I don't love it that you have a 1.85 ERA. You're going to win the Cy Young, and then you sign that player hoping for the same type of production. But Justin Verlander's won 2 World Series, and he's going to Cooperstown. He's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best pitchers in league history. We talked about the Blue Jays off the top of the show. If I'm the Toronto Blue Jays, I'm not giving him a 3-year deal. I might go 2 years on the deal and a club option for the third. It was rumored that Verlander and the Blue Jays were in talk a couple of years ago. He ultimately decided to go back to Houston after winning the World Series, but the Blue Jays were in the mix. Blue Jays need more starting pitching. Justin Verlander can help. 2 years and a club option for that third year so you can get out of it if you need to. Enough of these bit piece ads. Get a guy that can have some impact. You pair him with Alek Manoah. You have a 1-2 punch that is elite of the elite. I think Barrios has a bounce-back season. That's a 1-2-3 that is hard to deal with in all of Major League Baseball when they're all dealing. It's going to cost you some money, but you need to spend to play. You need to pay to play in sports, period. You want to be at the top, you need to spend some money. You want to compete with Houston, you want to get past the Yankees in your own division, you want to be better than the Tampa Bay Rays, do something about it. I think Jim Crane did say that the Houston Astros are going to take a look at what they're doing, what Verlander's doing. I think they'll be involved in negotiations, and possibly have the right to say, you know what, no, we'll match you before he goes anywhere else. But if the owner for Houston's putting this out, he's got to have a purpose behind. He must think that teams aren't willing to give Justin Verlander this deal, and that Verlander will come back after talking to his agent and say, you know what, I haven't gotten anybody that's biting on that. They don't want to give me that third year. They don't want to pay me $40 million. You end up going back to Houston. They don't have to give you 3 years. They give you less money, and they ultimately win that exchange. It can be a tug of war, that's for sure. But baseball negotiations are good. Free agency is open at all times. Guys can be signed at any point. Doesn't mean they're going to, but the option is there. So lots of interesting stuff in Major League Baseball that I hear on November 16th. Didn't expect to be talking about it on today's show, but we are, and lots of interesting stuff, and we'll update on baseball as we move forward here into the point. NCAA football. Get to this just briefly. This past weekend, it was an interesting one. We saw a number of really cool games. In the top four, nothing changed. Georgia took care of business. They beat Mississippi State. They continue to look like the number one team in the country. They haven't really had a close game all season. And Georgia, led by Stetson Bennett Jr. the fourth, Brock Bowers, and that great defense, remains at number one, undefeated. Number two in the college football playoff committee was The Ohio State University. Ohio State's a very good team. To me, they are number three. Michigan should be number two. But we're splitting hairs. Ohio State crushed Indiana. They were a 40-point favorite. They won by 50. Tells you everything you need to know about Indiana. But this offense for Ohio State can be explosive. My big concern about them is they're weak at receiver. They have Marvin Harrison Jr., who's a flat-out stud with C.J. Stroud. But Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is also a number one and will be playing on Sundays, has played sparingly since he was injured in week one against Notre Dame, and he hasn't been the same since. He may not play the rest of the season, hoping to get into the NFL draft, and doesn't want to hurt his prospects too much. We saw that happen with Jalen Waddle. So, an interesting thought for sure, but I think that's my thought. I'm worried about Ohio State. Me personally, I would have had Michigan. Michigan also has their warts. I hate their quarterback play. J.J. McCarthy is not a great college quarterback, but they have a great running game with Blake Corum. They have a solid defense on Michigan. They can run the ball. They can get to the passer. To me, they've just been a little bit more consistent in blowing people out more than Ohio State has. Ohio State had a tough game against Northwestern. They had a really close game at Notre Dame, where Michigan has been just sailing and having no competitive games, which I don't think is a good thing. I think they've had really one of the easiest schedules in college football, playing Colorado State, getting to play UConn, playing Hawaii, playing Nebraska. They played some really crap schools, and it's benefited them. So they're at this point where they got to win this week. Then you play Ohio State, you win that game, you're in the Final Four, but you might not be prepared to win a national championship. And number four, the same as last week, is TCU. TCU is a 7-point underdog heading to the University of Texas. University of Texas that was feeling itself. Clearly, Vegas thought the University of Texas was back. They're better than you think. Maybe they thought they were listening to Matt Wright a little bit too much, just brag up how good Texas is. And Texas did what Texas does on Saturday night. They laid an egg. They put up 10 points in offense. Quinn Ewers threw 2 interceptions. He didn't throw for over 110 yards. It was a disaster for Texas. They completed 1 third down the entire game, and TCU escaped with a win 17-10. TCU's offense did not look good whatsoever in this game, but what I was impressed with was their defense, which has been a weakness for them. But they came to play. They got pressure on the quarterback. They stopped the run, and they bailed out Max Duggan, who's been bailing out this team a lot this year with his great passing ability, and the ability for him to throw touchdown passes in the blink of an eye. So we have Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and TCU. Georgia knows their opponent in the SEC championship game. It'll be LSU. Both teams got a non-conference game this week. That'll be a cupcake game, a warm-up. They'll get those games in. Michigan plays Ohio State on November 26th. The winner of that game will play in the Big Ten title game against the team on the opposite side of the draw, which won't be a tough opponent, meaning that Michigan or Ohio State will be in the Final Four because they're not losing. Ohio State's playing Maryland this week. Michigan's got an even easier game, I believe, might be Rutgers. But they crush both those teams. Michigan, Ohio State will be undefeated. So that's two. The Georgia and Michigan, Ohio State will be undefeated. TCU, they have Baylor this week. They will be favorited. They'll play in the Big 12 championship game. They'll be favorited in that game. It's not an easy road. It's a tougher road, but I think they will remain undefeated. This team just has that backbone. They battled through adversity. So I like those three, meaning that Michigan or Ohio State will have one loss. You also have Tennessee in there, who has division games the rest of the way, but they're not against very tough opponents. This past weekend, they played against South Carolina and just romped them. Wasn't a close game whatsoever. They were feeling it. Hendon Hooker ended up with a lot of passing touchdowns, and they're just a really excellent offensive team. So they're a one-loss team at 5, and their only loss being to the University of Georgia, the best team in the country. At 6, we have LSU. And here's just a note, history. Since the Final Four was introduced in 2014, there has been no two-loss team that has gotten to the college football playoff. I do think there's a path for this. LSU has to defeat Georgia. If they defeat Georgia and win the SEC, they will make it. With 2 losses, they will still make the college football playoff. And it will likely be Georgia with 1 loss, Michigan or Ohio State would be in, TCU undefeated, and they will throw in LSU over Tennessee, even though Tennessee has the victory over LSU. I still think they'll reward the victory in the championship game more than they will Tennessee beating LSU head-to-head, where they crush them. So there is that possibility. I don't think LSU will beat Georgia, however. At number 7, we have USC, and this is where it gets interesting. USC has 1 loss. It came against the University of Utah, who are ranked number 10 in the country, and a 45-42 slugfest. However, Utah has 2 losses on their season. Week 1 to Florida, where they went to the Swamp and they lost to the Gators. And they lost to UCLA a number of weeks back. So it's a 2-loss team. That's the team you lost to. That's tough. It's not really that impressive a win. If Utah keeps winning, maybe it will be. But USC remaining on their schedule. This weekend, they are playing UCLA. Now, normally, to me, this would have been a massive game. But last weekend, UCLA lost to Arizona, late-night football. Big upset of the weekend. Arizona coming around in the Pac-12. They find a way to beat Chip Kelly and the UCLA Bruins. So UCLA now has 2 losses. Also in that conference, on the other side, Oregon had 1 loss, which was to Georgia to start the weekend. They play the University of Washington, and I thought this game would be tricky for Oregon because Washington's a very good football team. They only have 2 losses. They have a great quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. I think they have a lot of confidence. Well, it's a slugfest of a game, shot for shot. Bo Nix goes down. They gamble on a 4th down. Washington goes into Eugene, Oregon, and wins. So now Oregon, who had 1 loss and was 6th in the country, loses. They're now 12. UCLA, who was 8th in the country, loses. They're now 16. The Pac-12 is now dried up with losers. Utah, 2 losses. Oregon, 2 losses. UCLA, 2 losses. USC plays UCLA this week. If they win, they will have beaten a 3-loss team. Then in the Pac-12 championship game, they will either play Utah or play Oregon, meaning at the worst, they play a team with 2 losses. This weekend was hell for Oregon and horrible hell for UCLA because they know their college football playoff chances are over, but they might be for USC as well because they now need a lot of help to get in. Michigan or Ohio State are going to lose. That helps them. But Michigan and Ohio State will lose to each other, and one of those teams will be in the college football playoff. Utah is not going to be. So Michigan or Ohio State's loss will be more impressive than USC's. TCU. What really USC needs is for TCU to lose over the next couple weeks. Because if TCU has one loss and USC has one loss, they will get USC into the college football playoff. They will because they're a brand. Lincoln Riley's in his first year there. They're trying to turn it around. Caleb Williams truly is so fun to watch. He's, I think, the best young quarterback in all of college football. I think they want that. I do think they would love to have USC make it. They never get into the college football playoff. They've been irrelevant for a number of years on the West Coast. They need TCU to lose, and they do have a chance. But it will still be slim because Tennessee has one loss, and Tennessee's only loss is to Georgia. They would have beaten LSU, who made the SEC championship game. They've beaten Alabama, who's in the top 10. They have more impressive wins than USC will. USC might beat UCLA this week. They're ranked as 16th, UCLA. That's not that impressive. They need Tennessee to somehow lose, which I don't think they will over the next 2 weeks. And they need TCU to lose as well for USC to make the college football playoff. And they might win the Pac-12 and still not make it. That's why we need an expanded playoff because USC deserves to make the playoff. Not to mention in the ACC, which is a shit conference, Clemson or North Carolina is going to be an ACC champion with one loss. Clemson lost to Notre Dame. North Carolina lost to Notre Dame, meaning Notre Dame's really the ACC champion, but they're an independent. An independent because they're uppity and they're a religious school and they can't choose a conference. So they're by themselves out there on an island. But Notre Dame's beaten those two teams. They're ranked. But North Carolina and Clemson will play each other. I don't think either of the teams loses before the ACC championship game in the first weekend of December. What happens then? The winner of that game will likely finish in the top 5 or 6 in the rankings, but not get in, which is so crazy to think a Clemson team with one loss will not make the college football playoff. But that's what's going to happen. If North Carolina, however, looking at the opposite view here, if North Carolina wins the ACC, if they beat Clemson, they have a fantastic, they have one loss with Mac Brown, the way that program has been kind of just middling for a long time, Drake May might win the Heisman. Drake May's a stud at North Carolina, and he's a freshman. He might not win it because he's a freshman because he's so young. Heisman frontrunners right now, to me, Hendon Hooker's still in the mix because of what he's doing at Tennessee. Caleb Williams is absolutely right there at USC. He's balling out on the ground and through the air. Drake May at North Carolina as a true freshman, incredibly impressive to see what he's doing. More and more scouts are loving him. Darren Orlovsky on Twitter keeps talking about him. Robert Griffin III thinks he's going to be a really good NFL player. I think Drake May is there. Blake Corum will be in the mix at Michigan. Leads college football in rushing yards, leads college football in rushing touchdowns, and he's the focal point of that offense. J.J. McCarthy at quarterback is not. It's about Blake Corum at Michigan. They win the Big Ten. That'll give him a big boost, and they go undefeated, beating Ohio State as well. So those 4 guys are the front runners for me for the Heisman Trophy. There's no key guy at the University of Georgia, even though they'll be the number 1 team in the country, that stands out. Nobody at Alabama. Bryce Young won it last year. He won't even be nominated this year. LSU, no, they've had a really good season with no one player that just jumps off the page. Max Duggan at TCU could be. He had a stinker game against Texas. I think that'll hurt him. But if they run the table in the Big 12, maybe he gets invited to the ceremony at the very least. College football is fun. It's on every weekend. There's always craziness. But even though there was upsets last week, the Pac-12 is still a conference that's super fun for me to track. This weekend, USC, UCLA, Saturday night. That's a 9 o'clock kick. Then at 11:30, we have Oregon and Utah. So a couple really interesting matchups, 4 really good teams this weekend. We got Clemson, the University of Miami, sort of interesting. Ohio State, Maryland. Georgia is playing Kentucky, maybe, this weekend. That might be the matchup, Georgia and Kentucky. So there's some big games. Track a Heisman, see how guys are doing. Oklahoma State will play Oklahoma, 2 schools that are going in bad directions over the last number of weeks. So interesting stuff in the college football world, but that's where I see it sitting currently. To hockey. I have an opinion about a player that I haven't been that easy on this podcast, but at the same time, he hasn't been any good for me not to change this opinion, for me to rethink my options here. And for a long time, I looked at the play of John Tavares, and it looked average, and it looked benign to me. It looked like a player that wasn't worth $11 million. Quite frankly, it looked like a guy that was overpaid, that was old, and he was on a team that was overhyped and given way too much coverage for doing absolutely nothing. That opinion remains the same. But this season, we're 17 games in, and I've made different declarations, proclamations about teams, about players. I mentioned how I thought Austin Matthews having 7 goals is a big deal. It's not 4 anymore. It's not like he's not dominating every game. He doesn't look like the same player. You can have that opinion and still think the guy's a good player. Just for instance. But I look at John Tavares through 17 games, and he might be the most complete Maple Leaf through 17 games. I think he has been. John Tavares is playing this season with an extra sense of purpose. He's playing like a motivated player. He's battling for loose pucks. He's caring about his own zone. He's creating opportunities for others. And he's getting in good scoring positions. Not to mention his speed looks better than it has in past seasons. The John Tavares of Long Island, where he was exceptional status, John Tavares, the best player in the NHL, first overall, all of that is never going to return. It's not. That's just, he's in his 30s. You have Austin Matthews, he's the superstar, but you have a number 2 center that at his peak should be the best number 2 center in the National Hockey League, quite frankly, because of what he can be. But the more I watch him, John Tavares has had a really good season, and the Maple Leafs are changing lines, not because John Tavares is having no production, but because Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner couldn't get their shit together. Because that line had no chemistry. That line did not create scoring opportunities, and Bill Nylander, the wrist shot guy, and John Tavares had to be broken up because those two weren't humming. They weren't creating scoring opportunities. 5-on-5, they were irrelevant. And Sheldon Keefe said, you know what, enough of this. Yeah, they might be my 2 best players, 1 superstar, 1 star. I need to do something about it. Hey, Bill. Hey, John. We know you guys like playing together. We know you've had success, but you need to help these guys do something productive on the ice. And to their credit, they took it well. Tavares goes back with Marner, who he played with in his first season in Toronto, where he scored 47 goals, which remains a career high through Islanders and Toronto. And Matthews reunites with Nylander, where these 2 guys played with each other for a long time, had a lot of success, and they were broken up for different reasons. to a man and to a game, if you will, John Tavares and Bill Nylander have been better than Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner through 17 games. To a game. If I watched every game and I looked at effort, I looked at production, I just looked at overall impact, these two guys would be looked at more fondly than Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. And I'll repeat this again. That does not mean they're better players. They're not. But what I can say definitively, they've been better consistently than 16 and 34 through 17 games of the 2022-2023 season. And Marner and Matthews are having a slow start. There's no crime to that, but you're also playing like crap. You don't get to rob Peter to pay Paul. You don't get to have your cake and eat it too. It's one or the other. Bad play, you change up the lines. Now, last night, I thought the Maple Leafs had one of their best games of the season. Didn't think I was going to watch it. I bounced around. I watched like 4 to 5 games last night. It was actually a really good sports night last night. I watched some NBA, watched a lot of hockey. There was some good shit last night. The Maple Leafs had 2 lines going last night that should be going every night. Mitch Marner and John Tavares had the first 2 goals of the game. Although Tavares' goal was a weird play, that line had the first 2 goals. Mitch Marner and John Tavares do have chemistry. John Tavares still has a very good wrist shot, and Mitch Marner is still one of the more creative wingers in the National Hockey League. That line was buzzing, and Alex Kerfoot's perfect on the wing. Never put him in at center. If he has to play center, it's because your GM's done a bad job at accumulating depth, which he definitely has. But that line was great. Also, the new line of Matthews, Nylander, and Bunting was fantastic too. Michael Bunting gets 2 goals. He was having a brutal start to the season. He had 65 points last year, is in a contract season trying to validate his one good season he's had in the NHL. And he's been off to a really bad start. Was on the first line, then was on the 4th line. He's playing less and less minutes. Prop back up to play with the guy he loves playing with in Austin Matthews, and he has success last night. One goal goes in off his ass. I don't care how they go in. They all count. Toronto played last night. They had a 10-minute stretch in the second period where they were completely out to lunch. Other than that, they were by far the better team last night. They controlled pace. Toronto's best players were better than Pittsburgh's best players. Crosby had a really good 10 minutes. Pittsburgh had a really good 10 minutes in the second period. Toronto scored in the first 14 seconds of the second period to make it 3-0. And I was about ready to flip the channel and say, I'm not watching this game again tonight because it's over. Pittsburgh stinks. They were awful in the first period. They turned the puck over left and right. Jeff Petrie was out of position. It was a calamity of errors. But in that 10-minute stretch to start the second period, Pittsburgh got a power play. They scored on it. They scored a goal again later, and then they drew another power play. They were all over Toronto. Toronto was in a heap of trouble. Now, here's what I have to credit a goalie for one performance. That was last night. Matt Murray returned last evening for the Toronto Maple Leafs, his first game since the opening night of the season after he played the one game, went to a morning skate, pulled his hamstring somehow because he's constantly injured, but now he's back. Good for him. Matt Murray was solid last night. I thought he made some key saves in big moments. Now he got bailed out by Jordy Ben on the power play where Crosby actually, he had an open net and Jordy Ben was able to get his stick there. It was a mistake by Crosby. That should be in the net. It should be a goal. He couldn't get a stick on it. Jordy Ben cleared it. It saved a goal, but he made some key saves. Made a key one on Zucker. He stopped Chris Letang from the point where he got big and made a save on that play. He didn't have to be great the rest of the night. But in that 10 minutes period, he had a power play to be sharp on. He had 4 shots on that power play. He made key stops, and he was just in the right position more often than not. It was something to build upon. It was something to take as a positive note. Because it's real easy to take the negative approach here, which is my instinct. Shows are more interesting when it's a negative opinion. I can still have negative opinions. I still think the bottom six, the defense for the Maple Leafs, Rasmus Sandin is just so out to lunch. He's playing like such shit. Justin Hall is given most of the brunt. Most people just hate Justin Hall. Watch Rasmus Sandin for 2 shifts. You'll hate him just as much. Open up your third eye and watch the game. But I thought the Leafs as a whole played a strong fundamental hockey game. Their best players were their best players, which is few and far between this season. Too many nights, David Kampf, Dennis Malgin, and Zach Aston-Reese is your best line. Which, when that is your best offensive line, you're not going to win many games. You're just not, because those guys aren't meant to score goals. They're not paid to score goals. So I thought their two lines were incredibly efficient. They played good hockey. And the old John Tavares is not back for the Maple Leafs. But what I will say is John Tavares, in this new form, he can be a point-per-game player this season. He can get 82 points in 82 games, and I think he can go above it, quite frankly. The way he's playing, his ability to track the puck, he's aggressive. He's not afraid to go into the corner and fight for pucks. He's creating turnovers. He's being efficient. And I see Tavares, he's not even being a 200-foot player. Because you don't have to be a 200-foot player when you steal the puck in their zone. Then you don't have to get back in your own zone. You're not playing from behind. You're not playing with speed. You're playing the game on your terms. That's the key for slow guys. Guys like Mark Stone, guys like John Tavares, Patrice Bergeron, where skating is not your number one skill, where it's not your biggest pro, take away the skating ability of the opposing team. Mark Stone, how many pucks does he steal in the middle of the ice? He mucks up the middle of the ice, so it's extremely difficult for you to get scoring opportunities, for you to get into the zone, and he can go the other way, or he might have to play 120 feet and not have to play 200. It's an easier game that way. Same for John Tavares. The defense looks like he's got to play, but he holds on to the puck an extra second. Make him pay for it. Create a turnover. Might get a shot for Nylander. Get some more zone time. Things of that nature. Give a positive shift. To me, that's the mentality, what should be for the Toronto Maple Leafs, what it should be for John Tavares. Continue to play you have been. It doesn't matter who's on your line. Have that consistent play night in, night out. Be good 5-on-5. Scoring goals on the power play is one thing. Be productive 5-on-5 and create opportunities for your teammates. Maple Leafs win last night. I don't think Keefe is this brain dead, but do not go back to the lineup of Marner and Matthews after you had one good game. He wants to go back to that pair so much, I find. He loves it, which it worked last year. No chemistry this year. It hasn't worked all year. Matthews has 4 of 7 goals in the power play. 5-on-5, he's played with Marner the whole year. It doesn't work. For Pittsburgh, they're just not that good of a team right now. I thought they'd be better. They have time to turn it around. They're playing, but they're not playing great hockey. Their goaltenders are not playing well. I mentioned Jeff Petrie was great start. He had a tough game last night. Letang's never a guy I'm going to love. People think he's a Hall of Famer. People think he's a better player than he is. He's not my cup of tea. Crosby's still great, but I mean, finish. You got to finish on that play. You're Sidney Crosby, the best player in the world, I hear. Do something. Good for Toronto. Doesn't get any easier, however, because on Thursday, they get the New Jersey Devils. And while the Toronto Maple Leafs were beating the Pittsburgh Penguins, simultaneously, the New Jersey Devils were beating the Montreal Canadiens for their 10th straight win on the season. And the Devils are a tricky matchup for any NHL team. Here's why. New Jersey has just such balance on their roster. They have skill, they have toughness. Go down the list. New Jersey, Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes scores a pair of goals last night. He looks more and more confident, the former first overall pick. He's got a great shot. He's got great hands. He's playing with better players. But he's skill galore. He's ultimate skill. He's a fast player, so you got him. Jesper Bratt is one of the most creative forwards in the National Hockey League. He's a great passer. He's the quarterback of their power play. Skill out the wazoo. Nico Hischier. Nico Hischier to me is still a skill guy. Yes, he can mix it up a little bit, but he's got the ability to finish. He's got a good wrist shot. And he was not brought into he was a first overall pick in the NHL for a reason. It wasn't because he was a tough player. He was a guy that could win faceoffs. He was a guy that played 200 feet, and he had the ability to finish along that playing for the Halifax Mooseheads. So those are a couple of guys. Also, I added Dougie Hamilton on the back end, they gave a massive contract to. So far this season, he's been one of the best D in the NHL, period. His production, his reads, his play in the power play, Dougie Hamilton has been so great for the New Jersey Devils. Last year, it wasn't great for him, his first year with the new team. Year 2, it's been a hit. He's a skill guy because he'll put up points on a nightly basis. He's offensively creative. So you have all these different talent guys, but then you mix it with a bunch of gritty grinder type guys, but they can add to your scoring. Dawson Mercer's in his second season. He's only 21 years old. He had 2 assists last night. He works extremely hard. He can win faceoffs. He's a dog to get the puck back. I like Dawson Mercer a lot, plus he's from Newfoundland. But he's just a winner. Since last season, Game 1, he has not missed a game for the New Jersey Devils. He played the entire year last year as a 19-year-old. That is rare for a 19-year-old to make a team where he's not a well-known product and to not be a healthy scratch. Lindy Ruff loves Dawson Mercer, and Dawson Mercer rewards Lindy Ruff for that love and for that trust. Nathan Bastian, another guy. Tough, physical, he'll fight you if he needs to. He's also got a beautiful wrister. He's got a lot of tools in that tool chest. Bastian, good winger. Miles Wood, a guy who will go bar down, but then he'll also bash your head in if you want to fight. But he'll also go along the boards. He'll fight for it. He'll poke a puck loose. He takes the pucks to the net. I like Miles Wood a lot. I like this team. On the back end, you add a Ryan Graves to that mix, he's one of the most sound defensemen in the NHL just when it comes to playing really, really good defensive hockey. So Ryan Graves is kind of a chippy, tough guy. Was a tweener who had the empty net goal last night. I just think this team has a lot of elements. They have a lot of ways that they can beat you. My biggest concern about New Jersey moving forward, I'll tell you, a 10-game winning streak is a 10-game winning streak. You take that with you. It's the goaltending. I mentioned this last week, but they haven't lost since I brought it up, which was a week ago Thursday. They have Vitek Vanacek right now and an AHL goaltender on their roster. Mackenzie Blackwood's out with an MCL strain. Who knows when he'll be back? Now, Vanacek's held down the fort. They traded for him from the Washington Capitals, and he's been up and down in his NHL career when it comes to consistency. Now, New Jersey's given themselves a cushion where they're going to go through a tough stretch here. Vanacek will start playing poorly. They play Toronto on Thursday. They could easily lose that game. Easily. Because Toronto's the better team on paper. Toronto has more as superstar talent, where New Jersey just has a lot of good players. There's a difference. But the goaltending and just guys maybe not being so hot, but I love the New Jersey power play. They got great movement on it. They turn a lot of defense into offense. They turn the puck over and they quickly break out. They don't like to keep the puck in their own zone. I watched them last night, and they just play really good. Lindy Ruff has always played really good systems. Lindy Ruff's the coach in New Jersey. He's the 5th winningest coach in the history of the league. He's never won a Stanley Cup, but he's had really good teams. He went to a conference final with Buffalo twice. He's coached in Dallas. Lindy Ruff is a great head coach. And I think this team has bought into Lindy Ruff, and they play hard for him. But Tom Fitzgerald has built a balanced team in New Jersey. Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes might not be Connor Bedard, but he turns out to be. They might not be Austin Matthews. But you get enough high draft picks, they're going to turn out to be good players. They took some time, but these guys are coming into their own. In, night out, they're playing really good hockey for New Jersey. 10 straight wins is 10 straight wins. I don't care how you do it. You go through that much of your schedule, you are a team to be reckoned with, and they are first in the Metropolitan right now. Put some respect on the Devils' name. Their opponent last night was Montreal. Montreal loses 5-1. This was a rare game where Montreal got blown out. What I will say about Montreal, their defense is still a work in progress. They still need some help there. Joel Edmondson's still getting back into the lineup. He missed the start of the season, so he's still trying to find his game. His foot speed isn't all the way there. Arbor Zurbach is starting to come back down to earth. Mike Matheson will return. The biggest thing for Montreal this season, where they're not going to make the playoffs, there's no expectations, it's just a failure of a season. Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki are legitimately becoming a true duo in the league. When you think of Marner and Matthews, when you think of McKinnon and Rantanen, you think of Draisaitl and McDavid, Marchand and Bergeron. You think of duos. You think of lines that have two players that just have a great connection, and they bring it. Caulfield and Suzuki are entering that sphere. These two guys have great chemistry with one another. And I watched Cole Caulfield last night, and he looks like a completely 180 different player than what he was last season, where he started the year with Montreal and he got sent down to Laval. His confidence was shot. He looked like he was begging to be sent down to the AHL because he couldn't handle the rigors of the NHL anymore. Well, going down helped him because he looks like a new guy. He looks like the confident guy that came out of Wisconsin that we saw playing the bubble. Nick Suzuki, I don't think he's a cocky player, but I do think he knows. He's heard that the Patrice Bergeron player comps, and I think he knows, looking at himself, that I'm a pretty damn good 200-foot player. I have a pretty good shot. I can make things happen. And he can. Suzuki's a really good player. Cole Caulfield's a really good player. I love what they're doing in Montreal. These two guys are fun to watch every time they're on the ice. Kirby Dach is playing well. Jake Allen has been really a weak point. He's 5-6 on the year, but he's also got allowing over 3 goals per game. So he hasn't been fantastic for Montreal. But I mentioned, I love that they're having that connection. Keep playing Caden Gooley. He played another good game last night. Like, dude's just a stud. He's part of that defense core for the next, hopefully, 10 to 15 years. The fact that the Toronto Maple Leafs didn't draft him still is so offensive to me. You have every forward in the world. You have every kind of European forward that you want. You have all this skill. And this has nothing to do with Rodion Namirov getting a brain tumor. That's obviously horrible. But you can take Rodion Namirov, or you can take Caden Gooley. I saw them both play at the World Juniors. I saw them both play outside of the World Juniors. Caden Gooley brought something different to the table that the Toronto Maple Leafs would kill to acquire right now. In particular, Jake Muzzin being out. But now you don't have the depth, and your defenseman to replace Jake Muzzin is 5'9", like the rest of the defensemen you have on the team. Ugh. For Montreal, you're going to lose games, and this is how I'd approach the season. I have 3 guys on a list that are non-negotiable for me. You trade them. By the trade deadline, they're out of Montreal and they're not on your roster at the start of next season. I'm going to go 3-1. Number 3, I have Sean Monahan. Sean Monahan's on the last season of a long-term extension with the Calgary Flames. He's had a long injury history. And I would tell Montreal, if you can trade this player tomorrow, do it. Because you don't know if he's going to be available Sunday afternoon. Sean Monahan's career is, we know you're going to get injured. It's just a matter of when. If a team sees that he's playing pretty well, which I actually think he's playing decent, and they say, I think he can help our team now, let's make an early November trade. Trade him. Trade him, because who knows if he's available in February. He's not a player I want to gamble on. For a team acquiring him, I think he's a number 3 center at best when he's healthy. That's where he is now. Injuries have really deteriorated his play. But he still brings something to the table. He still can win face-offs. I like Sean Monahan. I'd take him. I'd take a flyer on him. Now, I wouldn't take him over Bo Horvat. I wouldn't take him over Jonathan Toews. And you might want to wait for those guys. But again, if you're a team and you say, what, I'll take it. It's the last year of his deal. We'll take Sean Monahan. Do it. He's not going to be on your team next year. You know that. Trade him. Monahan, number 3. Number 2 for me, Montreal Canadiens. You have to trade by the trade deadline or the season is a failure. Mike Matheson. Mike Matheson has not played a game this season for Montreal Canadiens because he was injured in training camp. He was traded from the Pittsburgh Penguins for Jeff Petrie and that deal that included Ryan Poehling. Mike Matheson normally has a really good first season with every team he goes to. Positive first season in Florida. Really positive first season in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a smart organization. They saw the forest for the trees and said, we're going to sell you high. Let's give you to Montreal. We think we can reinvigorate Petrie. Remains to be seen. They got a lot of season left to do that. But Matheson, I think, will play well when he gets back to Montreal. They could really use him. They got Jordan Harris. They got Kostovlik. They got Zerback, who are all young defensemen. They're trying to break in. Matheson will rejoin that top 6 whenever he's healthy. And I read a report this afternoon. He might be available as soon as tomorrow night for the Montreal Canadiens. He will play well, I believe. He'll get a good opportunity to play top 4 minutes because that defense is weak. Again, he's not part of your future. If you can deal him, deal him. Get something in return. Get a draft pick. Get a young player. Maximize your assets. That's the key for the Montreal. Maximize your assets. Know who you are as a team. Know what you're good at and what you're bad at. And make a trade. Trade him while the stock is high. Let that team acquire him. And let them regret trading away a prospect they kind of liked for Mike Matheson. Don't be stupid. Trade him. And number 1, the Montreal must trade this player before the deadline or the season's a failure. This player is, I don't know who's going to trade for him, but this was a trade Montreal made to acquire this player. And it's been an unmitigated disaster. He brings nothing to the table, and you're going to need to find another idiot to trade for him. But again, maybe there's a sucker out there. There's one born every day. Christian Dvorak for the Montreal Canadiens needs to go. Christian Dvorak is about as useful as a caution wet floor sign when you're outdoors and you're walking on concrete. Who gives a shit? He's stuck in the mud. He has nothing. He doesn't bring toughness. He doesn't bring speed. He doesn't bring hockey sense. He's out there for a skate night after night after night, and he gets opportunities and he doesn't finish. Because eventually you're skating around out there and you're wheeling around looking at people who might be waving at a fan. Eventually the puck comes to you, you're like, oh shit, I'll shoot it. Miss. Really good opportunity. He doesn't finish. He is nothing that I love about his game. Nothing. Montreal traded for him from Arizona thinking this is a huge upgrade. This can help our team get better. No. It's a burden on your team. Find a sucker. And you traded him from Arizona. You got him from Arizona. That's the biggest sucker in the NHL. There has to be another one somewhere. There has to be another sucker in this league for you to get Christian Dvorak. Brings nothing to the table. If you can watch a Montreal game, he's number 28. Watch him the entire game. Tell me something he does productive. Tell me he competes hard. Like, you can't even give me that. Enough, Christian Dvorak. Enough. He needs to go, Montreal Canadiens. Those three guys are top of mind to me, and I have Brendan Gallagher just outside of that. If you can get a good deal for him, you can get his contract off the books, do it. Credit for Montreal so far, they will die down. Last night, New Jersey looked like a far superior team. Do we have a new best line in the NHL? I was thinking that last night watching Dallas and Tampa Bay, which was a really good game, as I thought it would be. Do we have a new best line in hockey? For a long time, it was the perfection line. Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak. Well, now that the Boston Bruins are so deep, they have so much talent on the roster, Pastrnak, Marchand, and Bergeron hardly ever play together anymore. So that line's got a little diluted. Marner and Matthews and Bunting were considered the best line in hockey last year. Well, they're no longer playing together. So they can't be the best line. McDavid and Draisaitl play shifts together, but I can't define them as they're on the ice every shift with one another, so they're not the best line in hockey anymore. I look at the lines. I think McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog was right there. Landeskog's out for the first number of months of the season. McKinnon and Rantanen have been nothing short of superb for the Colorado Avalanche. Rantanen's playing fantastic. McKinnon's getting a ton of assists. The team's on fire. Colorado is right there, for sure, with that line. Now, they can wheel in a different winger seemingly every game to play with these two guys, and that winger will be effective. But I like that line a lot. But again, I don't think there's the third piece right now that's so definitive that you can say that's the best line in hockey. So I scratch them out. The best line, I'm saying it right now, the best line in hockey comes from the Dallas Stars. And you wouldn't think it's going to come from the Dallas Stars because nobody cares about the Dallas Stars. But they have three players that have played with each other for a year and a half, and they have had all kinds of success. That would be little Joe Pavelski, who's already got 9 goals on the season. Will have 30 again this year for something like the 16th season in a row for little Joe. They have Rupe Hintz, who can finish but is also relentless on the pucks. Goes into corners, fights you for it. A true workhorse at the center ice position. And Jason Robertson, otherwise known on this show as the better Robertson brother. The guy who never gets healthy scratched and the guy who can actually play nightly. Jason Robertson has 11 goals and 14 assists on the season. Joe Pavelski has 9 goals, over 20 points on the season. Rupe Hintz is right there. These guys know where each other are on the ice. They have the ability to finish. They have such good reads. And I think Dallas in overtime to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And quite frankly, Tampa should have lost the game because Jake Ottinger was horrible. 3 of the 5 goals can't go in. 3 of the 5, including Alex Killorn's game-winning goal. Horrible goal that went in. Peter DeBoer must have been furious, and that team. Ottinger was terrible last night. So Dallas should have won in regulation, but they did not. Jason Robertson and Little Joe and Hintz have more pressure than other teams because they don't have the kind of depth at the forward position that other teams do. Rantanen, McKinnon, Landeskog, they had Kadri last year. They have Newhook this season. They have JT Compher. They have my guy, Martin Kaut. They have Cale Makar on the back end. They have insulation so that if they don't have a great night, they still might have a chance to win a game. I don't think they have that much. Wyatt Johnston's a rookie who's had a good start for Dallas. Miro Heiskanen has to have more. He's got more of the load on his shoulders because John Klingberg is now in for these 3 guys. To me, they're the best line in hockey. You might not watch Dallas, but if you watched SportsCenter in the morning or Sportsnet Central, whatever you want to watch your highlights, Dallas, and you see them play, seemingly every goal has something to do with Jason Robertson, Little Joe Pavelski, or Rupe Hintz. Seemingly it does. Dallas loses, as I said. Tampa won a game with Brian Elliott, so that's a positive thing for them. Vasilevsky had a night off. He hasn't been that great to start the season. Elliott gets the win. For Tampa, what I take from the game, Stamkos scored a goal after a really hot start. He's only got 8 now, but he had a really hot start to the season. Victor Hedman looked great. Sergachev was involved physically last night. He can get involved, be chippy. For Tampa, for them, it's all about promoting from within. They draft, develop. Herbex is a guy they've played with Syracuse. He's now playing a regular shift in the NHL. They get guys from their farm team that come up and have an impact. Ross Colton is that guy for them. And I look at this team, he is their new Blake Coleman. For 2 Stanley Cup runs, Blake Coleman was a glue guy. He was a workhorse. He scored big goals for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And he was on the third line with Yanni Gourde and with Barclay Goodrow. That was invaluable. Ross Colton has morphed into this. He's become more of a chippy player. He gets to the front of the net. He was on a line with Corey Perry last night, so you know it's going to be a physical affair. He's not afraid to poke his nose in. He gets the dirty areas. He mixes it up with people, and he's got an ability to finish. Blake Coleman has scored 30 goals in the NHL. I think Ross Colton will score at least 30 goals at least once in his career. I think he will because he has that ability. He's not afraid to get to those areas, and he works his ass off. Ross Colton's a great player for Tampa. But still look at this team. They're only 2 points back of the Leafs. So's Florida. They win last night. They're right there. Montreal's 4 back. All these teams are bunched up. Nobody has jumped off the page yet. I'll never doubt Tampa because they have Kucherov, they have Stamkos, they have Point, they have Hedman, they have Sergei. They still have that nucleus. And Anthony Cirelli hasn't played a game yet. Anthony Cirelli hasn't played a game yet for this team. And Zach Bogosian, quite frankly, who's not a number 1 defenseman, but he's an important piece on this team. They don't have their number 2 center. They're winning games. They beat a good Dallas team who will be a playoff team last night, sans number 2 center. I expect both Dallas and Tampa to be a playoff team this year. But I will say, Toronto should be better than Tampa at this point because I think they have better depth. Not much, but I think they do have better depth. Maroon, Belmar, these guys are kind of the same guy for Tampa. They're better playoff players. Where Pierre Engvall, if he had a pulse, would be a great depth forward for the Maple Leafs if he gave a shit night in, night out. Unfortunately for the Leaf fans and for Leafs Nation. For the Brass, he doesn't. Also last night, Anaheim beats Detroit in overtime. Big win for Anaheim. San Jose beats Vegas. San Jose GM Mike Grier comes out and says he would be willing to listen on trade calls for Erik Karlsson. My response to reading that last night was no shit, Mike. No shit. Mike Grier would trade Erik Karlsson right now for a bag of pucks. This has nothing to do with Erik Karlsson. It's about what to do with that contract. To get that behemoth off your books. Because you got Karlsson, Vlasic, Couture, Hurdle, all locked up long-term right now. You're never going to trade Vlasic's contract. You got to hope he has some kind of Jake Muzzin injury. Not life-threatening. I'm not saying that. But if you're the organization, get some kind of long-term injury so that you can be put on LTIR and you go away. You go to a farm, you go to Robot Island, wherever, just not here, so we can spend money elsewhere. Because you're fucked without it. Karlsson, Vlasic, Couture, all these deals are on the are being paid by San Jose right now. You're not competitive with these guys. You're going to be mediocre to bad for a long time. You trade Erik Karlsson for anything because it frees up some room. Yeah, he's having a great start to the season. Good for him. I said that. Good for Erik Karlsson. But this has nothing to do with the player. It's about the circumstance. Your circumstance sucks. Your circumstance is we can't do anything because our situation is we have no money and we have all these boulders in front of us, so we can't plow through. Tough to win. Tough to win. Before we go today, tomorrow, Ben Murray will be around. As I mentioned, he'll join us at this time tomorrow, 5 p.m. We'll talk some NFL. We're going to talk some hockey. Tomorrow, we'll recap the sports night tonight, as always. Ben and I are going to talk about a couple different things. I will do Big Money Friday by myself on Friday, so that'll be a separate show. So I'll do that on Friday. I wanted to do my top 5 NHL teams before we wrap today. I was going to do it with Seamus yesterday, but he got busy. We got busy, and we couldn't do it the other day. I wanted to talk about it today. So, as I get back in my notes here, I know I have it somewhere, my top 5 NHL teams at this point. Here we go. November 16th, top 5 NHL teams for yours truly. Number 5, I have the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg has been completely off the radar for me. Something I did think would happen is that Connor Hellebuyck would have a bounce-back season. Connor Hellebuyck has been the best goaltender of any Canadian NHL team so far. He's playing at a Vezina level, which he's already won. Mark Scheifele's playing at an elite level, which I'd never doubt Mark. He loves the game too much, and he's a great competitor. Blake Wheeler hasn't been a pouty bitch about being stripped of the C. He's embraced it. He's been a really productive player on this team. Cole Perfetti fits in. Pierre-Luc Dubois having back-to-back good seasons. Neil Pionk is the number 1 D, and Morrissey fits in, including on the power play. Winnipeg's depth, I still question what they're going to get from their bottom 6 forwards on a regular basis. But I think Winnipeg's defense is better than what I give it credit for. With Nate Schmidt and Brendan Dillon, Dylan Sandberg. It's not perfect, but I do think it has its positives. I think they're tough to play against. I think they're physical. So Winnipeg still has some questions to be answered, no doubt about it. But they're a very good team. And I see Seamus is coming in here. Wow, I see him coming in. That's a look. I'm intimidated to come in because I shaved last night. I had a little haircut today, trimmed up the moss, and he's got the hair looking like Selleck. He's got the stash like Selleck. I don't feel worthy right now, and I'm honestly a little uncomfortable, Shay, that you're looking so great, and I'm wearing this shitty multicolored shirt.
Oh, it's a good look. It's a sharp look. No, the best part about getting on right after work is I'm going to be dressed to the nines now, which does me a favor, which is like basically day and night from how I used to dress when I was working from home. Like I could be out in the streets of Uptown St. John. So, yeah, I'm serving looks, but the mustache is coming in a little bit. I can't say it's the best in the office, but it's not the worst. I've seen some straggly ones walking around, and I just you give the nod because everyone who has a mustache in the office gives the we're all supporting the same cause here, but there definitely is a certain responsibility to how you uphold the mustache, and I think sometimes that goes overlooked on some of these guys.
Right. At your new job.
Yeah.
Are you in a cubicle? Do you have an office?
Yes, I heard you yesterday. You're curious about the things, so I'm glad we can put this to rest. I unfortunately am in a cubicle. I'm not special enough to sit in my own office, which would be lovely, but I do have there's non-window seats, and then there's window seat. And I was lucky enough to get a window seat, so proud of that achievement in my life, getting the window seat up on the 10th floor. But yeah, that's my life now, basically.
So, do you have like a divider, or does everybody see you while you're working?
No, yeah, I have a little divider. Yeah, like the person beside me can see me, and we have little chats. He's a nice guy, Wilson. His name is cool name. So besides Wilson, there's just 2 other people in front of me But I don't see what they do, or at least I try not to poke over and see what they do. The eyes do some wandering things at 3 or 4 o'clock during the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a coffee run, like a Hortons run for the boys every day? Is that kind of office stuff that happens? Anything
Yeah.
fun?
No, I'm not Jim Leahy. I'm not. Even though I'm the new guy and the bitch in the office, I'm not. I'm not doing Horton runs.
Uh,
I should be that guy maybe and go to the Hortons and get orders. But yeah, no. I mean, maybe not yet. Maybe if I get a little comfortable. Maybe if I screw up. That's a good way to make up for it.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You're in a relationship. What do? You get the woman flowers when you're in an office. Quick Hortons run. Everyone gets their donut. Everyone gets their coffee.
Right.
All is amends.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea on a bad day.
Yeah, when you're having a bad one, go to Hortons run. You late? Guess what? It doesn't matter if you're late if you got coffee for that person.
That might be a play tomorrow because people might be depressed about it snowing and just
Yeah,
how just dark it is all the time and
I
just
think so. Yeah, it's. Oof. I know I'm struggling with it a little bit, but when I saw that first snowdrop today, whole new mood. It was like a whole other level of I don't know when you would call it seasonal depression or
yeah,
just
just
being in a crappy mood. And you get home,
negativity all around.
I know. You
Yeah.
got to hold me accountable, though. I want you to be my guy who says, you got to go for that extra walk. You
Okay.
got to do your push-ups or chin-ups in the room. I need somebody to keep me accountable for this.
I can do that. I can try to do that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, snow in November. My God, that's a kick to the pills. I'll tell you. This afternoon, I was trying to stay positive, but again, I guess we live in New Brunswick. We know what the hell we're getting. Before we get to our top five NHL teams at
Okay.
November 16th, your Leafs big win last night.
Yep.
Matty Murray looks solid. What were your thoughts on the game overall?
I mean, I was happy. I wasn't. It's so tough to tell because I feel like with Matt Murray, you're gonna get super good. That was some solid goaltending, but we saw this in Ottawa where he turns it around and either he's bagged up in practice the next day or he's gone AWOL and his numbers are horrific. I think playing in Pittsburgh definitely did not just him, but I think the team a little extra boost. They haven't won in Pittsburgh since 2017, and on top of that, their goaltender, which I didn't know this, but no, there's not too many lovers of Matt Murray in Pittsburgh. There seems to be more haters. So it's
Yeah.
a good motivation to stick to him, and the team backs him right there, regardless of who you are. I mean, that's your goaltender. That's a key member of your team, and they wanted to play pretty hard for him, and I thought they did overall. Obviously, holes and some things that were not perfect, but overall, I thought the offense was good. Nice to see Tavares tuck in his 400th goal. I mean, that's obviously an amazing achievement. Not many people can even say they've got their 400th point, let alone their 400 tuck. So good,
Mhm.
great for him.
Can John Tavares be a point per game player this year?
So you're asking me if he's going to sustain this level of play, basically.
Correct.
I think there's a dropping point to his game. I think that it's eventually going to happen where he doesn't stay this hot because I don't know. I don't have the same faith. It's not like when he came in here and he was that 90-point guy and he
Mhm.
was all over the place. He was playing with Marner. He was electric. He was scoring goals from all over the place. I just don't think that's going to be him for a whole season. But do I still think he's going to be maybe 70 points? Like 70 points is not a far ask, and I don't think that's out of the realm.
Mhm.
Um, I see him finishing in that 70 to 75 point range. So not far off from where you're asking, but I guess it does make a little bit of a difference. More importantly, is he show up in the playoffs, which is got to be something that he's wondering at this point because he's been captain here for a while and he's been on the team for longer. So, how does that play in a factor? What about you? Do you think he hits that number?
I do.
He hits
Yeah.
80. Okay, 82.
I think he gets 82 and 82. I
Do you
do.
think he stays healthy, though? Do you think he stays healthy and hits the point per game marker, or do you think that
Yeah,
one of
health
those
is
is
so tough to predict, but I'll say yes. I'll
okay?
say yes. I've really liked the way he's played this year. I think he's been their
Me too.
most. I think he's been their best forward, quite frankly. throughout the whole season. I think just on a game basis, if I look at 17 games, I think he's been their best forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, but that by far the most consistent for night in, night out.
Let me just ask you this: have Tavares and Nylander been better than Matthews and Marner in the first 17 games?
I'd have to say yes. You take out the offensive aspect of that, and defensively, sometimes they're just in shambles. Marner, especially, but sometimes even Matthews doesn't fully look like the MVP caliber player that he was last season. But yeah, but they've been more responsible in their own end, which obviously is a good thing. Nylander's hustle is always going to be into question, but for the beginning of the season, I think the motivation's been there for him to play well. A question for you in this about the Leafs. Brody's out probably 2 weeks. How well do you think this decor of, I want to say a patch job decor, because that's how it feels sometimes. You got Jordy Ben playing up in the top four and Giordano and what'd you say?
The plumber, Jordy Ben?
The plumber, yeah. He's like the janitor from the Astro days, the guy who wore no mitts and just creamed the ball. He's like that guy. How do you think they fare? Do you think it crashes eventually, or do you think they can keep afloat for 2 weeks?
I think Jordy Ben's played pretty well his first 2 games, which I don't expect that to carry over. I mean, he had a breakaway at shorthanded last night. He was even surprised. He didn't know what the hell to do on it.
Yeah.
I think Liljegren's been okay. I like that he's not afraid to make a mistake. It's the best thing about him. It's 2 weeks. I'm glad it's 2 weeks. I'll say that. Asking Morgan Riley to play 24, I've seen that time and time again. It's a disaster. He can't do it. It's not his fault. It's just not who he is. Not a number one defenseman. My biggest Hall gets killed, and I get it. Hall is not a great defenseman. Rasmus Sandin, my God, that guy, every time he's a disaster. Every time I see him, and I honestly start to feel bad for him, which I never feel bad for a pro athlete, because you were a pro athlete and you were better than me at everything, so screw you. But I look at him, and he just looks so indecisive. He doesn't know what to do. And I think for him, Liljegren has kind of played 4 games and been promoted to a higher role. Liljegren's become assistant regional manager, and Rasmus Sandin is Andy Bernard sitting there like wanting to ruin his life to take over his spot. I just think he's really uptight. I think he's a little insecure about where he stands on this team moving forward.
Doesn't help that he held out. By the way, there's one thing that you do better than most professional athletes, and that's have great lettuce, buddy. I'm going to say that right now.
Thank you.
Maybe not all, maybe some. But I agree with you. It's hard to find Sandin's identity sometimes on the ice. Like, if he could just be reliable and a good puck-moving defenseman, if he makes the odd mistake here or there, I forgive him for that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not knowing what he is sometimes really, really hurts him. And I agree with you. I didn't love Liljegren at points of last season, but this season he's looked a ton better, and especially coming off injury. And I think that he's going to have that confidence moving forward. Hopefully, with Muzzin out, I mean, he could be a permanent fit in that top 4, really, playing with maybe a Riley or
in a perfect world. Yeah, he builds his way into that, because you can hear from Leafs media that they're searching for a defenseman, and they're going to replace Jake Muzzin. Yes, you have the free salary cap room, but who are you trading? They don't have that many great assets. They got draft picks that are going to be late 20s in a perfect world, because you're going on a deep playoff run for a team.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but Nick Robertson is not an enticing player, because Toronto's not playing him right now. He's not an NHL player to me. I said that before the season. He had one great game. He was, The Rock. He got a big fame. People cared about him, and then he was in 6 shitty movies in a row. Like, that's how I see the career arc of Nick Robertson so far. Pontus Holmberg, wherever the hell he's from, is playing before Nick Robertson. So that tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah. I mean, like, what's his name? Ty Knives or Tyson Knives, whatever that guy is.
Matthew Knives. Yeah.
Matthew Knives. Yeah. Like, he's a career fourth liner if he ever makes it to the NHL. He's not an elite prospect. I mean, while the goaltender, he's hurt or he's not playing well in the HL, so he's not impressing anybody. So you're right. Like, there's nothing much to trade for other than picks, and they might tell Dubas, no, you're not trading our picks away. You don't know what to do with them.
You give up picks for. He doesn't have a contract, so they might say you're not allowed to trade him.
You bake. It's one of your famous lines. You bake this cake, you can eat it. Basically, because you like that one too.
Trench bowl.
Yeah. And you're not far off. He's got to figure it out on his own. An ideal defenseman that comes into this scenario, I love the way he plays, is a guy like Connor Murphy from the Chicago Blackhawks. They probably won't give him up, but he's a guy I could love seeing in a Leafs jersey. He's physical. He's great defensively, and he's not going to provide much offensively. But that's kind of what you're signing up for.
Yeah, and really they don't need any more. Just simple guys that know the game. I was saying before you hopped on, I had Winnipeg as my number 5 team, best teams in the NHL so far. Why don't you take us through your number 5?
Sure. So we're going 5-1 then?
Yes.
Okay. So my 5 actually same division but different team. I have the Dallas Stars.
Okay.
Playing 5. They take the L last night, but a spirited bout with Tampa, who not a bad team by any measure. I just love the way they played. I love that Jason Robertson could hop in with no training camp and play that well and be that great. I love the moves they made on the back end. Colin Miller and Neil Lyskus. I think they've both been. I think I said that right. I think they've both been pretty good as not key pieces, but certainly depth pieces on there.
Mm-hmm.
And guys like Wyatt Johnston, Ty Dellandrea, like young guys who are stepping up, making this team better with aging contracts like Ben's and Sagan. So I had my doubts about this team, I think like most people, but I think they are certainly providing a half decent effort throughout the first 17, 18 games of the season.
Yeah, no, they've been fantastic. And they really, if Ottinger, I watched that game last night, if Ottinger could have made a save, they would have won. And he let in 3 bad goals and they lose 5-4. So, Dallas is good. And I think they got the best line in hockey with Jason Robertson, Rupe Hansen, Little Joe. So they're just, every night they put up 2 to 3 points, seems like. Who do you have at number 4?
4, I have a greasy team, but I can't leave them off this list just because they keep grinding. And I don't love the makeup of the team, but the New York Islanders just keep putting on and on. And I was going to say the Canes maybe at 4 or 5, but I just love the Islanders. Sorokin's been so good this start of the season. He's been a beast. Varlamov as a backup's been pretty good as well. I think he's provided some effort. Guys like we mentioned rising stars, guys who are going to make breakout seasons. Oliver Wahlstrom's played pretty decent to begin the year, at least offensively, not always in his own zone. But there's a lot to love about this team. The fact that Matthew Barzal still is without a goal, or maybe unless he scored one last night, is just insane. But he's got like 20 points, just all apples. Guy just dishes.
Yeah, he's so creative, and they got some good wingers that can score. They still got Anders Lee. Dobson's already got 5 goals on the season. The PEI native, he's having a great start. So I'm right there. I love that team too. Wayne Lambert, aka the Wolverine behind the bench, he's scary as hell. I think they're just tough to play against. Yeah. Number 4 for me, no surprise. I love this team, New Jersey. New Jersey they're balanced. They got their goaltending I don't trust long term. The next time we do this list, they probably won't be on it. But they're on it now because we're talking about it right now. Yeah. And Hughes, Heischer, Jesper Bratt, my boy. Dougie Hamilton is playing great. Vanacek 7-1 on the season. Vezina, who knows? I just think this team has all. They might not win the cup, but I think they make the playoffs. I really do. They won't go on another 10-game win streak this year, but they have enough depth and their team is built really fundamentally well that they have a mix of everything that there will be a tough out the rest of the year.
I just keep thinking about Jack Hughes' comments to that reporter in Montreal and how poorly she must have felt about asking that question.
Yeah.
No, they're my number 3 team. They're right up there with me too.
Wow.
I have them 3-4. They're playing well. I mean, it's really hard to deny. Key adds this year, and they're doing this without Plot. Plot's played 6 games, sorry, and he's got 3 goals in those 6 games. But it's
Right.
not like he's been on this 10-game bender. He's been long gone. So they get him back, yeah, absolutely. And the teams like Pittsburgh and Washington,
Yeah.
they may be fighting for wild cards. Well, maybe New Jersey is going to be sitting comfortably because of wins like these early in the season.
100%. Number 3, I have Colorado. Colorado lost to my Blues on Monday night. Blues have won 3 in a row, quietly. But Colorado, to me, has had a tough season because they go to Europe, that stupid Finland series, dust Columbus twice, just head home, pack your bags, see you later. But Rantanen, McKinnon, their best players are playing unbelievable. JT Compher's starting to find it. Makar's been great. Biggest thing for me, Georgiev has been rock solid in between the pipes. He was a backup goalie for the year, but he's got a good foundation around him. I watched them play. They played St. Louis Monday night, as I just said, and that was a war. These two teams had a great playoff series last year. I hope they play in the playoffs again this year. I think we might see a different result. But I think Colorado, to me, they're starting to win quietly more and more. They're already back to near the top of the Central Division with Winnipeg and with Dallas. So I like the way Colorado's played the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, the only reason they're not on my list, they got off to a little bit of a shaky start, but they definitely are kind of reeling it back in. I was worried without Landeskog how this team was going to look, especially without the leadership that he brings. But it really seems like they're going to just keep going off. And I was so doubtful about the signing of Nichushkin, and he has proven me wrong. He's been a gamer, honestly. Like there's a few guys in the league that you can say like that, but he brings it every night, and he's lethal from anywhere on the ice. So your number 5 team was Winnipeg. Did I hear that while I was coming in, or was it a different Winnipeg?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm interested to see who your because that was your 4, right? Or yeah.
So I got Winnipeg, New Jersey, Colorado.
Okay, yeah. So we probably have the same top 2. I thought maybe what's that?
I imagine the teams are from Sin City and Beantown.
That they are. But let's see who you. I have Boston as my second best team, with Vegas being the best team. Some are going to disagree with that. I can see it on your face that you don't like that pick, but I do not care.
I just don't. I have Boston 1.
I love Vegas. I love what they're doing this year. Their team is deep. They've got structure. Old Brucey's in there, and you know what? He's probably laughing at you for picking Boston as number 1.
I'm sure he is, although they lost to San Jose last night.
They did. That's embarrassing. Yeah, I should just.
That's an embarrassing loss. They lost to the Leafs, but I mean, I think this was like splitting hairs. Like I think it's really new coaches both places. I didn't think Krejci be this good to start the year. I didn't think Charlie Coyle would care as much as he has through 16 games because he never does. Hall looks like a way better player. Pasternak is dialed in. Marchand looks like he didn't have hip surgery somehow. I don't know how that happens. McAvoy has shoulder surgery. He's fine. They win every game without McAvoy. He comes back. They keep winning. I mean, this team, they played poor Vancouver on Sunday night. That wasn't fair. That was like I said yesterday in the show. It was like the Globetrotters against the Washington Generals. It was just a joke, like little kids against grown men. And they moved the puck so well for me, Shea. Linus Ullmark has been stellar, just like Logan Thompson's been stellar in Sin City. So I think it's splitting hairs. Like you flip a coin, and one say head, one say tails. There's no wrong answer here.
Swayman's hurt right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Game 1 of the playoffs. Who starts? Knowing Ullmark can play like this.
Ullmark.
Still going with the Swede. Okay. I just had to check. There was a lot of debate on Bruins Twitter last year about this. I wanted to see what you had to say.
Yeah, they hate Ullmark in the playoffs last year.
Yeah,
now they love him. Now they love him for sure.
So easily a franchise can turn. It seems like there's still a little bit of hot water over this Mitchell Miller thing. I don't know if that'll
Yeah,
ever go away from them, but we'll
they need
see.
to bury that like a dead body, but they keep bringing it back up to the surface. So
Yeah.
they need to get bigger weights or something to make sure that doesn't keep popping up because that's nothing but negativity is coming from that story.
Yeah, exactly. They need to. You're right. Keep doing grave digging things, and bad things will happen. Yeah, no, I mean, to highlight on Vegas, I don't think that this level will sustain for the rest of the year. I don't think they're going to nominate this division, although it is weak, which
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about before. But I mean, this is great because if they stay hot for another 10, 15 games, they could be guaranteed a playoff spot in such a weak division, right? Who knows where,
Absolutely.
if Calgary doesn't turn it around, we know Vancouver, what they're going to do. Edmonton's going to be a playoff team, but are they going to be a threat? I don't know. So Vegas is kind of right back in the playoff mix. And not only that, they're probably going to go deeper than they have in the last couple of years.
The best thing these two teams have done is because of their starts, they can go 500 the rest of the season. They will make the playoffs.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
particular,
exactly.
Vegas, because they get Anaheim and San Jose in there, and like you said, Vancouver. My God, they wanted to lose that game last night so bad, but they hung on. I ended up watching some of that game, which
I did too, actually. Yeah, it's
I'm not proud
interesting.
of. Well, I'm proud of you. I'm not proud of myself for watching some of that game, but
Yeah.
well, Horvat's going somewhere, and I'm curious where that will be. But maybe Boston. Who knows? How was Rowan's game on Saturday? I know you went to watch your brother play midget double A there in Rishabukto. How was that?
Good. Kind of torn when it's located here in Quispamsis, and that's who they ended up playing, the KV Riverhawks. Their name is, and always a chippy affair between the two teams, and I love it. I love that old style. That's like what I grew up watching. Going to the midget games when I was in like seventh, eighth grade, ninth grade. Go to those games, and it's a free for all, and it's just usually a mess. No, good game. He didn't play his best, but there were some good goals, some good breakaway goals, which you hate to see because that's sloppy defense. But still, yeah, some shiftiness, and I love the way that it all transpired. They end up taking the L, which is unfortunate, but we'll see. They might never beat them. It's like the curse. There must have been a team you played when you were younger that you were better than, but you could never just beat. Like it was just
Yeah,
impossible to beat them.
yeah, Shediac. We could never beat them, and
Okay. The old
I
KV
love
boys.
playing there. I was one of my better rinks that I've ever played, and I had a lot of points there, but I could never. The bums around me couldn't do anything, so I was just.
Yeah, Luca was too busy curing a hangover, probably.
Me and Luca were just the only ones. Everybody else out to lunch. We went to
Oh,
Shediac.
he was effective. So Luca was on his game. He must have been.
We were on the same line. For 2 3 years there, we led our teams in scoring. So that was a highlight of my athletic career. But that was the highlight of my athletic.
Get his jersey in the rafters, boys. Let's go. New arena in Elsie. I'm gonna push for it. You and Larry Francis. And you
Yeah,
guys both
Jesus.
get your names up there.
Jesus. What's on the go the rest of the week for you? Wednesday already.
Wednesday already with the snow coming. Oh God, snow tires, prepping for winter usually. Last minute shit that I never do. Clean out my garage so I can leave my car in there. And then watch. I mean, there's lots going on sports wise. I'm trying to think of. There was an NBA game that I had circled off.
Sacramento.
Yeah. I love loving on the. I'm not gonna say what podcast, but there's another podcast I listen to besides this one. It said, "Oh, lock. The Brooklyn Nets are gonna beat Sacramento." No, they lost, and they let out 150 points. Is that not the most? Is that the most embarrassing loss of the year? Or can you think of another one?
That's got to be close. I mean, they got crushed by Sacramento last night. Crushed. Yeah, yeah. That's maybe a Lakers loss. I feel like they got crushed in there by somebody.
I think they also lost to Sacramento.
They did. They did. Sacramento's won 4 of the last 5. They're hot.
Don't spit on that name. They know
Yeah,
what they're doing.
6th seed in the West. That's what they are.
Yeah.
Sacramento, Sacktown, baby.
Yeah, yeah. The capital of California, which I didn't know. That's
I know.
interesting.
That's weird.
It's a
It's
strange
weird.
spot.
Kind of like Ottawa in Canada, though. It's a little too
Yeah,
bad.
yeah. Exactly, exactly. No, so I watched a couple games there. Unfortunately, I was on the road doing things this Sunday, so I didn't get to watch as much football as I normally do. So, gonna try and pull a U in university, get all my work done, get all my chores done Saturday, and then lay on a couch Sunday and just enjoy the mayhem. What's your must see? What's your must see game for me?
On Sunday for football,
Yeah, can be anytime.
Vikings Cowboys 5:25.
5:20. Okay, I like it. A little supper time action.
Or Sunday Night Football is good too. Chargers Chiefs.
Oh, the Chargers. I don't know if I can trust the Chargers
And I
anymore.
wouldn't trust them. I would tell you I wouldn't bet them as a dog. I'll tell you that. That's
Are they going to make the playoffs this year? I'd say no. I'm going on a get. I'm going on a
they're
gutsy
gonna
move.
lose. They're gonna lose this week, so they'll be 5-5. The Jets. If the Jets can beat the Pats this week, that'd be a big win for the Jets because then they'll be 7-3 somehow, and they basically go 500 the rest of the way. They make the playoffs. Chargers got to play the Chiefs. It'll be their second matchup of the year. They got another tough matchup in a couple of weeks. I forget who the team is. Plus, they stink. Their offensive coordinator's going to be fired. Darren Staley's probably going to be fired. I'll tell you a team that I would bet on, a futures bet, if you're looking for something, to make the playoffs.
Oh, I think I know
The
what you're
NFC
saying.
team.
The Washington Commanders.
Oh, for the football team. Yes.
The
The
Washington football team.
Green Lizard.
Yeah, yeah. I listened to you yesterday, and I thought, you know what? Probably right. I probably should throw a future down just in case.
Case.
Making a little bit more money at KPMG at Irving. So maybe I have that
There's
extra dollar to spend.
a Freudian slip. Don't let that happen again.
Yeah. I might be axed before my third week in this job. Jesus.
You're like Phil.
Like Toby, leave
Yeah.
too early.
Yeah. No, well, glad to hear you like the cubicle.
Thank you.
And glad to hear you're watching some shows and enjoying that. So enjoy the snow weekend. Enjoy the Chargers. And as always, bet the underdogs.
Go commies. Let's do
I
it.
think they're favorited this week, though.
They're gonna make the playoffs.
They played the Texans.
All right. Have a good one, buddy.
You too. Take care. There's Seamus, everybody. Great to see him. Always fun when he can join the podcast. That's it for today. 2 hours into the show. Big show today. Back tomorrow with Ben Murray. Same time, same place, different but same level of high event content. So until then, have a great evening. This is To The Point.